Another CEO Wisdom Pod. We have Evan Leybourn with us. He is live from Australia, starting his day in Melbourne. It's 7:06. Evan's a productive machine. He had a call before myself. I also started my day at 6:30 today, and I just asked Evan at what time he would finish his day. He answered 10, so I have a similar answer to that. Might be 10:30, 11. My brain is pretty much jelly right now. I've done like 7 interviews today, but I'm fired up for that one because Evan made agility less boring. And I know that you're not into agility, Evan. You told me last time, but tell us a bit more about what you do precisely at Business Agility Institute and tell us about your background.
All right. Thanks, Charles. Name's Evan Leybourn, based out of Melbourne, Australia. Land of fantastic coffee, but terrible weather. And as Charles pointed out, maybe Mexico could beat Melbourne for weather. For coffee, and
Both.
Definitely beats Melbourne for weather. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we have pretty decent coffee here, but I need to visit Australia because you guys have so many things like the nature, the beaches, the coffee. So it's top 5 on my list.
You definitely have to. So who am I? I'm the CEO I'm the co-founder of the Business Agility Institute. I have been working in this space, in this domain now for many, many, many years. The focus is capital B business, little a agility. It's about creating organizations that have the freedom, the flexibility, and the resilience to achieve their purpose, to serve their customer. Here's the magic 6 words: no matter what the future brings.
Love it. How do you get these big-ish customer to sign up with you? Because when I hear it like, enterprise, like 200 employees plus, how do you get to them? Is it a referral business? Do you do outreach? Like, how do you get in their pipe?
So let's be clear, we're talking like 20,000 plus. The organizations who are really looking towards business agility tend to scale very large. We're talking financial services, healthcare, manufacturing. The smaller organizations are naturally agile. They don't need the systemic change. The problem is these larger organizations, especially the older ones, the ones that sort of predate the digital revolution and the internet revolution in the 90s and the 2000s, have governance systems that are bureaucratic and they actually cost the organization money. There are organizations that will spend $3 to save 1. And the systems of the organization, the business systems, don't know any better. And so the organizations, especially with the pressure of the competitive market that we have around the world right now, they're looking for this. So the truth is, we do very little in terms of outreach, in terms of sales outreach. We do information outreach. Our content marketing is capital C content, little m marketing. It is put out information that people actually want to read. And let's face it, with AI, I love AI, but signal to noise around content marketing is going to be bad. So for us, it's about making sure that the content that goes out is informative and then let them come to us.
Yeah, especially in the B2B world, which is higher IQ. And I think GPT can do a decent job in the B2C world. Proof of that is Google. When you do a search, like for health questions, Healthline will pop, and Healthline is pretty much 6 or 7 on 10 type of resources in terms of the information value. So I think it can scale in the B2C, but B2B is way more intellectual. You need to be more creative and add even more value there. Who's in charge of creating that content, and how do you make sure to always add value to the brains that are reading you?
So we have an amazing team. So our digital producer, Chris Morales, based out of Germany, we're a global organization. We have members in 80 plus countries. But he has come up with some amazing insights about how we engage with our very broad audience. And ultimately, it comes down to just a belief that if we can show there's value in what we're talking about, right? Sure, a lot of people will go, oh, this is great, thank you very much. They'll take it, they'll do it themselves. They won't need to be a member of the Institute. They won't need what we have to say. We'll get no revenue out of them. But there are enough organizations out there. This is not Like, this is not a zero-sum game. There's enough organizations out there who are like, we need this, and can you give us one step further? Like, we're a research organization, we do studies. So they want to know not just what is the information, like what's possible. They want to know, where are we in this? And so we can actually then profile the organizations. And so they come to us for the personalization of that. And I think that's going to be key in the modern economy, especially B2B, is that every organization can do it themselves, but the personalization, right, that's where the expertise, in our case, our research, in a consulting firm, it'd be the specialists, but whatever the capabilities are, that's where the key is going to lie.
Right. And tell me about the different product/business models you have here. It seems like you have sponsors, you have huge logos such as Santander, Accenture, TD, huge logos. That may be one. Then you have the consulting. Do you also have like a monthly mastermind? Like tell me about your pricing models.
So as an organization, we're membership driven and we're a research organization. So we don't do consulting, we don't do training, like 2-day classes and things like that. There's enough people out there that will do that. As a membership organization, we serve very much, again, capital B, business agility. So we serve the businesses, but we also have individual members, those people, folk who are passionate about this space and want to change their companies. Whether they're an individual consultant, or whether they are part of a larger organization. So we have one of the things that's important to me, and when I founded the organization, you're a startup founder, so you know this very well. The systems, the structures of an organization at start reflect the mental model of its founders. Right? And so my mental model, the way I see the world is a network. There is a network effect. Things are holistically and systemically connected. This is a powerful strength. It has a trade-off because it means you get distracted very easily. But I see this network. And so we've treated those individuals who get access as like $100 a month, they become a member, $100 a year, sorry. They become a member, they do their things, they learn from the webinars and the content that we publish, because we publish a lot. And most of them, like, that's where they stop. But then some of them will attend our events, and then they will, like, in 2 years' time, they'll be hired by a large bank, and they'll go, oh, you know what, that Business Agility Institute, they've got some really great stuff. And then they'll bring us in and go, hey, let me introduce you to the head of X who is trying to do this. And so thinking about it as a system and this network effect of building relationships multiple years before they're necessary, right, builds up to where we are now, as I said, in 80 plus countries.
Yeah, that is definitely a strong thesis of mine as well. What do you think about the other thesis, which in my opinion is even more superior to that, which is building the best product ever?
I agree. That is absolutely vitally important. Selling crap doesn't scale. And what we say with our members, and when we talk about companies and what they're doing, there's nothing worse than doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. And for us, I will admit, the problem with saying we want to build the best product is that is a moving target. What we thought the best product was when we started is not what we think the best product is now. And I know that what we do now, I'm going to look back in 3 years' time and go, what was I thinking? Right? That's rubbish. Right? We had the wrong approach. We were targeting the wrong people. So yes, you want to create and strive for the best product, but you want to move quickly, which means you need to release the product when and where it's ready, like good enough. Right? Because if you wait for it to be the best product, you will never release it.
Fully agree. Yeah, the market needs to give you feedback. You need to experiment stuff. And most importantly, you need to derive accurate conclusions, which are usually not made by speaking to one biased customers. It comes with scale. Fully agree with that.
And so literally that's what, when we talk about business agility, we published a document called The Domains of Business Agility, which talks about the capabilities of an organization that allows them to achieve their purpose no matter what the future brings. One of those key capabilities of an agile organization is the ability to seize emergent opportunities. Right? That is, you see something, there's an opportunity out there in the market that wasn't there 6 months ago, that wasn't there yesterday. You notice it, right? It's a sense and response. You actually have to actively look for these opportunities, and then you have to have the capabilities inside the organization to actually grab it. Right? And that comes like by putting things out there and listening and going, oh, hang on, like they loved this, but they loved this little tiny piece of what we did. All right, what if we make that the whole thing and build on that? It's like, oh, that's fantastic. We've launched entire new like research products and membership offerings entirely because we got some feedback on something that we were doing that people loved that wasn't what we were expecting.
How long is that loop of yours of action, of idea to action? Because mine is incredibly short. It's like I get this idea, I'm launching an Apollo.io campaign, a cold email campaign to test that idea of mine the next minute. Well, not the next minute, but like in a couple of hours from now.
That's where company size matters. And that's why the companies we're talking to are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands big, because when you're 10, 5, 1, 15, you can make a decision and you can put it into action like literally the next minute. And the consequence is, okay, it didn't work, we move on. The problem is with larger organizations, they have like marketing standards and media teams that need to look at things. And if you're in say, financial services, Legal, yeah. And if you're in financial services and any regulated industry, you've got regulatory constraints. Back before I founded the Institute or co-founded the Institute, I was doing, back when I was a consultant, I was consulting with a large American financial services organization. And we were doing a transformation of their marketing function. And there was so many great ideas. And then the internal compliance team had said, no, the insurance business and the banking business cannot share data. So you can't go, oh, you just bought a flight on our credit card, therefore you might need travel insurance. Regulatory constraints means they literally cannot connect those two data points. And so it's like, damn it. So the large organizations in the context means that some of these things are measured, well, it's much slower than a 1 to 10 person organization. But here's the key. Most of these larger organizations, right, are too slow. They could be significantly more effective, significantly more productive, but the internal systems and that bureaucracy and that governance has just over decades, in some cases 100 years, just added more process, more steps, more checks and balances because someone made a mistake once, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, and a manager at the time, right, a myopic, not particularly innovative manager said, that cannot ever happen again. And so new process gets added and process gets added, and it keeps creating this incredibly immovable organization. And it only survives because it's got enough cash in the bank to weather like disruption. They're not surviving because they have good products and good services, or for that matter, the ability to adapt. Cash in the bank only lasts so long. And so that's why these large organizations are freaking out, and they're coming to folk like us to go, how do we become more agile in capital B business?
I'd want to argue as well as per the brand moat. You know, for example, the other day I was asking myself the question, why PwC? You know, it's definitely not the employees. Maybe they do have the processes and the SOPs, but it's mostly their reputation from taking care of business when it needs to be done, or their reputation from being somewhat neutral, you know, and good in regulatory processes. What other moat would large businesses have? And hint, I don't think they have much moat, but tell me about some potential ones that you can think of.
Okay, so the large consulting firms, again, like they'll buy, in fact, forget large firms, like they'll buy innovation rather than do it themselves because they don't know how, they've lost sight. And the problem is, and I won't name names because obviously public, but I've worked for large organizations that were very good at the acquisition part, right? Less good at then leveraging what they bought. And so they would buy these hugely innovative companies with amazing products and passionate fan bases. And then within 2 to 3 years, by the time the actual integration is complete, anything that made that organization amazing has been lost, subsumed by the larger behemoth. And now, don't get me wrong, there are other organizations that do these acquisitions really effectively and keep them as, and actually the bigger organization is sort of like they're culturally, they become aligned to the younger, fresher, innovative organization, but that is rare. And so the bigger consulting firms, they'll just acquire these small boutique firms who know what they're doing. And then in 2 years, they'll kill them, but then they'll just buy another one. And so it's not a great strategy, to be honest, but it does work to some degree.
Right. Yeah. New blood in an old system, which is quite interesting. It's like if if HR is constantly betting on new talent, and probably 10% of that talent will be very good, 70% will be mediocre, and yeah, another 10 would be like somewhat normal. And it's like if these B players overwhelm that business, make it drastically slower, stop the innovation, everyone's comfortable, right? Because people seeking for this type of employment, they're seeking comfort, they're seeking financial comfort, they're seeking, yes. If they're humans, that is, they're seeking to save their energy, right? They're seeking to get paid as most and save as much energy and come back from work to do what they really love doing, whether that's martial arts or taking care of kids or cooking lessons, for example. So yeah, this is, yeah.
That's it. And one of my heroes from like the Japanese the Japanese miracle, W. Edwards Deming. Deming wrote decades ago, a bad system will beat a good person every time. And right. That was true in the 80s and it's true today.
Right. I want to ask you, because I have a question directly related to that, but I'm just curious about your pricing. Like how much can someone pay to be a member? And then how much do you pay for you to do some kind of study, some kind of research for them? Give me an idea of the fees, because these are humongous companies. They theoretically have limitless money in the bank. And I want to like test the waters and see like how much you can get from that.
Okay, so let's be blunt. Research isn't the most lucrative of business models. Membership is not the most lucrative of business models. Individual membership, again, that price is on the website. That's $100 a year, like for an individual. But that's not where we make most of our operating revenue. That's coming out of the corporations and the corporate memberships, and we're talking 5 figures here. Now, another organization, part of it is around independence. Like if we were a consulting firm, then consulting firms are charging 8 figures for an engagement, right? And that's fantastic if they're doing a good job, which a lot of them don't, but that's a different conversation. But again, in terms of doing a study of an organization, we're looking at what it means for that organization, what it means for that company, where they are today. And one of the, and I'll be frank, I'm on record as saying that membership is a very fragile business model. Subscriptions are a fragile business model, because when a company goes through, especially B2B, because when a company goes through any kind of economic stress, they're going to look to the subscriptions and what can we cut before they start cutting headcount. And then they'll start cutting headcount, which obviously is sad, but that's what happens when an organization gets under financial stress. And but so membership, subscriptions, software as a service, all of this kind of thing, especially if you're not core to their business, is a very fragile business model. And that's one that we're working still to try and innovate around and figure out how to become more integral. And again, to be clear, whilst we believe that change is a necessary part of every organization. Organizations have to learn how to manage change. We're at a time of financial stress, organizations are going, all right, we don't want change. We don't want to like the status quo, like let's just double down on the status quo. And so anything that's change or transformation generally gets sort of like cut or at least downgraded. Now, obviously, we've survived pandemic and economic uncertainty, so we're doing something right. But it is, for any of the listeners who are in that kind of subscription membership kind of business model, you need to figure out, and of course, it's different to every organization and every offering, but you need to figure out how to create resilience and redundancy when economic times are tight. And your subscriptions are the first things on the chopping block for the companies. And this is especially true in B2B. In B2C, it's still true, but those prices are much lower. Like you get fired, you get made redundant from an organization, you're not going to cancel Netflix as the first thing you're going to cut. So it's a little bit different in B2C, but B2B, especially like the more expensive memberships, the corporate memberships, they'll get cut pretty quickly. So just be mindful of that.
Never
and I will also note, sorry, go on.
Yeah, never cancel Netflix and subscription to Ben and Jerry's and cry your heart out before looking for next job. What were you gonna say?
So I was going to say, one of the things that we had spoken about in the call before this one was how I'd actually sort of stepped back as CEO. And so we promoted Laura Powers. She's now the CEO of the Business Agility Institute and doing an amazing job. Especially, I will be blunt, I kind of handed her a poison chalice, though we didn't realize it at the time. So at the beginning of the year, it's like, we come out of pandemic and numbers are up, things are looking good in 2022. Towards the end of 2022, things are great. And then of course we hit this bloody economic uncertainty. I'm sorry I don't know if that's a swear word for some of your members. As an Australian,
you can swear. I promote swearing, especially in front of children's.
I'm an Australian, so it's my daughter is very clear that it's like, these are mummy words, which are not allowed to say at school. And anyway, but at the beginning of the year, obviously, the economic uncertainty across the US and cascading into other countries just created this sense of fear. And so it's a different story about mental health and resilience and everything else, which I don't know if we've got time to get into. But one of the reasons...
I've got more time. I've got 10 more.
Oh, fantastic. But one of the reasons why Laura, like it's good to kind of put someone else in that CEO role is that at a certain point, an organization needs to make different decisions. And there's an old saying, I think it's Marshall Goldsmith, what got you here won't get you there. Right. And that is true for us as it is for every organization. But my point, sorry, I'm rambling, but my point is that one of the beautiful things as a co-founder is the ability now to step back and actually focus on, okay, how do we make our products better? If I can worry a bit less about like the day-to-day revenue, now don't get me wrong, I still worry about it. I'm still a shareholder of the organization. I have to worry about it. But it's the operational decisions and a lot of those strategic tactical decisions, I like Laura is now taking those on. And so I can focus on some of the other areas around how do we make this research product the best possible product we can sell? And because that is what's going to make the difference in an economic uncertainty. If we can make that product so compelling, so obvious that an organization needs it, that it is like, okay, we're going to, budget's been cut, but we're still going to spend the money on you because it's worth it. And the problem is, as a founder and CEO, right, you get pulled in multiple directions. And I'll be blunt, right, one of the issues or the mistakes that I made last year was I got so distracted by the operations of the business and the short-term strategic decisions and the tactical decisions that were necessary, that I lost sight of the customer. I lost sight of who we were doing this for and how we were doing it. And anyway, having that separation is actually an important point.
Yeah, I mean, Me, I started in sales. Sales are essential because you need them. You need to start there. Arguably, and according to I and a lot of CEOs I interviewed on the pod. But nowadays, I'm seeking to go all in product. Like be obsessed with product. And yeah, just like you said, like if it's too essential to cut out, then you're not going to cut it out. For example, I use this tool called Apollo. It's the reason we're here today. It's how I reached out to you, and whatever the price, I wouldn't cut it out, because it's my business flow, and it's how I meet amazing folks like you. So good rambling right there, and interesting decision. And by definition, and with what we mentioned today, like with these behemoths of business, by definition, if you're not investing energy in something or don't have systems, most of us don't have systems, this thing will be crashing down, if you don't take care of it. So it's just laws of nature. It's not taking care of it. It's just like focus goes where energy flows, or the other way. So yeah, I believe it's quite important to obsess with that, quiz your customers, ask them like what they want, and again, gather the feedback from 10, 50, 100 people and try to build something very useful. And arguably this podcast is a product, it's like me trying to get better at asking questions, getting better guests, editing, and so forth. The particularity here is that my audience, myself, we probably don't have experience marketing to 20K plus employees businesses. I had Sean Shepard on the pod. He's the CEO of U Plus. Basically, they build kind of the VC arm, the venture arm of huge companies, which is quite interesting. It's like Walmart Labs, let's say, where they they acquire startup and so forth. And I'm gonna ask you the same question because it's like it's 5 figures, it's membership prices, but how long is the sales cycles? Because to me, it's kind of rocket science to reach out to this company. First, there's so many titles. I think you can get through that maze pretty quickly. But then once someone is like, yeah, I'm pulling the trigger, well, that may mean that they will pull the trigger, but in 6, 9, 12, even 24 months. So is that the case with your business? Are they that slow to make business decisions?
Oh, absolutely. So again, before the Institute, I've had multiple careers. I was a public servant. I was an executive in the Australian Public Service. I have been an independent. I've worked for large consulting firms. I've done multiple things. This is also not my first startup. It's running a startup or founding a startup is highly addictive, as I know you are quite aware. So B2B sales, especially at the larger scale, there's a couple of things to note. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not an expert, but this is just my experiences and my observations. So first of all, an important thing to note is, to a point, the number doesn't matter. Once they've made the decision to procure from you, spending 10K is the same effort as spending 100K. Now, there are always thresholds in an organization. So as long as you're within whatever that threshold is, 10 or 100K doesn't actually make that much of a difference. You still need to be able to justify the value. It's not like you're selling a $10,000 product for $100,000 because it's the same effort to procure, because your competitor will sell it for $10,000 and they'll win in the first instance. But the effort for procurement is not dependent on how much is being spent, right? Unless we're talking like 4 figures, like a couple of $100 to like 1,000-2,000, which is like credit card territory. That's a different issue, because then it doesn't have to go through the procurement system. But the minute you need a purchase order, right, the minute you have to go through the procurement system, 3 months minimum, right? That's from the decision. That's not the actual sales cycle. In terms of the procurement system, it's just have every piece of information you need ahead of time. And all the procurement systems, even though there are different platforms, they all ask very similar information. We've got one Google Doc internally that is like, this is our procurement SOP. It's got if they're going to ask it, and there are different questions, but it's like every single question that could be asked has an answer in this document. And so I can, it doesn't have to be me, anyone in the organization with authority can enroll in one of our members' procurement systems in 20 minutes. Now it takes them the next few months to get the PO and go through their internal approvals. But our side, we make it easy. Right? We make it incredibly easy. Couple other key points. First of all, for us, the win is when we get the purchase order. Right? It's not when the money hits the bank, because that can be months later. And it's not when we get an agreement to do the work, because those agreements, until you get the purchase order, can be taken away. Things happen. So for us, the magic point, we count the chicken at the point the purchase order, we get that PO number, because we've never not been paid once we got the purchase order. Sometimes we've been paid like 3 months later because they have like a 90-day payment cycle, but that's a different thing. So that also, by the way, is when we trigger the membership benefits. So as soon as we get the PO, we count them as a member, right? And again, that's about goodwill, because these internal people hate their procurement systems as much as you do. Right? They're fighting it, and they want your services. So as soon as we get the PO, we give them the logins, we give them the details, we start the process, because from the person who is signing the not signing check, from the person who is approving it, the budget holder, they love the fact that that's like, all right, let's just get started. Right? You're a member as of now. And also means that, because of course we're a membership, which means there are renewal fees. Once we're onboarded, then the membership renewal is from that point, rather than from 3 months later when the money hits the bank or whatever it is. Final point, and then I'll stop rambling. You mentioned about like titles and so forth inside an organization. And so what I'll say here is just know your industry, because a VP in a bank is a very junior role. A VP in a tech company is a very senior role. So the job title matters a lot less than you think. For us, like I mentioned at the beginning, one of our strategies is to cultivate relationships before we need them. And part of that is, if we go out trawling LinkedIn for job titles, half the time the person is either too junior or too senior. And so it's sometimes it's tricky to know who it is. But there's and forgive me, I don't remember where this is from, but there's a trust equation. Credibility plus reliability plus intimacy over self-reliance, over self-orientation equals trust. So the credibility is what we publish. It's the fact that we're a research organization. It's the fact that we publish things that are true. Reliability. We say what we're going to. We do what we say we're going to do. We've not always been great at that. There have been times when obviously like no organization's perfect, but we try. Intimacy. This is the key for us. It's about those relationships and the personal knowledge. So we'll cultivate these relationships, and then 2 years later, they will be in a role where they go, Evan, can you come and have a chat with my boss? Because they really need to hear what you're talking about, because they know who I am, because they know who Laura is. They know who Ahmed is. They know who we are and what we do, because we have cultivated those relationships, that intimacy. I could spend another 30 minutes talking about my LinkedIn strategies, because it's like, if you're with me on LinkedIn, I'm going to talk to you once a year. Right? I'm going to look, if I haven't heard from you for a year, I'm going to look you up and go, all right, Charles, and I'll read through our notes, because I don't remember like 20,000 people in my head. It's like, okay, so Charles is this, that, and this, right? Or Billy's got 2 kids. Mary just got back from maternity leave. So it's like, hey, Mary, how's it going? How's maternity leave? What's it like being back at work? So it's not about being inauthentic. Because the key is to actually care about the people you're talking about, and to be authentic in those conversations. but to keep them alive, because that requires a level of interaction and management. But if you have that intimacy plus the credibility plus reliability over that self-orientation, that selfishness of the, oh, it's all about me, right? Then you build trust. And if you have trust, doesn't matter whether it's a 200-person organization, 20-person organization, or a 200,000-person organization, they will bring you in, right? Again, as long as the product's good. You can't sell crap.
Lots of insights there. Thank you for that. Evan, can you tell us where people can find out more about you and the Business Agility Institute?
Yep. Just Google Business Agility Institute or businessagility.institute. Yes, agility.institute is a top level domain. And it's very hard to spell. So sometimes I do regret that. But just Google us, you'll find us. If you want to chat with me, look me up on LinkedIn, Evan Leybourn, Leybourn. I'm the only one with my name, so I'm pretty easy to find. And be warned, two things. One, if you send me a LinkedIn request, please say you heard me on this podcast so I know where you're from. If you don't, I will ask